Imagine standing on a hill in the middle of World War II. Below you, an American armored division stretches across the countryside. Hundreds of tanks, thousands of soldiers, artillery batteries, supply trucks, radio operators. Everything looks ready for a massive invasion. If you were a German commander looking through binoculars, you would immediately call for reinforcements, because an entire army appears to be preparing for battle. There is only one problem: none of it is real. The tanks are made of rubber, the artillery is inflatable, the trucks are empty shells, even many of the radio conversations are fake. Yet somehow, this imaginary army would deceive some of Hitler's most experienced commanders, and in doing so, it would help save thousands of Allied lives. This is the unbelievable true story of the Ghost Army, one of the greatest military deceptions ever kept secret. For more than 50 years, almost nobody knew it even existed. By the summer of 1944, the Allies had finally broken through the beaches of Normandy, but liberating France was only the beginning. Ahead of them stood one of the most experienced armies in the world, the German Wehrmacht. Even as Germany began losing territory, its military remained deadly. Every river crossing could become a massacre. Every bridge could be turned into a fortress. Every delay meant more Allied soldiers would die. The American command understood something important. Sometimes, winning a battle did not require more firepower. Sometimes, it required making the enemy believe something that wasn't true. So the United States assembled one of the strangest military units in history. Officially, it was called the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, but history would remember it by another name: the Ghost Army. Unlike ordinary soldiers, these men weren't selected because they were the strongest. Many had never fired a weapon in combat. Instead, they were artists, architects, advertising designers, sound engineers, actors, set builders, illustrators, men who understood one thing better than almost anyone else: how to create an illusion. Before the war, some designed magazine covers, some painted enormous billboards, others studied theater and stage production. Now, their audience would be the German army, their stage, an entire battlefield. And failure would not mean bad reviews, it would mean thousands of people dying. Their mission sounded almost impossible: convince enemy reconnaissance that a massive American division had arrived, even when almost no real soldiers were there. The tools they used seemed almost ridiculous: inflatable Sherman tanks, rubber artillery pieces, fake anti-aircraft guns, canvas trucks, wooden aircraft from the sky. German reconnaissance planes couldn't easily tell the difference, especially from several thousand feet above. What looked like 30 tanks might actually be 3 trucks carrying inflatable decoys within a few hours. An empty field could transform into what appeared to be an enormous military base. But fake tanks alone weren't enough. The Germans weren't stupid. They also intercepted radio communications. So the Ghost Army built an invisible army. Special radio operators carefully copied the communication style of real American divisions. Every signal, every pause, every transmission pattern matched genuine units already fighting across Europe. To German intelligence officers listening through headphones, everything sounded authentic. An armored division had arrived. Orders were being issued, supplies requested, reconnaissance reports exchanged. None of it was happening. Then came perhaps their most extraordinary weapon: sound. The army secretly recorded entire military columns, tank engines, bulldozers, half-tracks, heavy trucks, soldiers shouting, metal tracks grinding across roads, engineers building bridges. These recordings were played through enormous loudspeakers mounted on military vehicles. Under the right weather conditions, the sounds could travel for miles. German patrols lying awake at night believed thousands of Allied troops were moving just beyond the trees. Some commanders reported entire armored columns that never existed. Others delayed attacks because they believed overwhelming American forces had arrived. Without firing a single shot, the Ghost Army was already changing the battlefield. But creating an illusion was only half the challenge. The other half was becoming the illusion. The soldiers themselves often wore fake unit patches from real divisions. They drove through nearby towns where civilians might accidentally report seeing them. They talked loudly in cafes. They deliberately allowed themselves to be overheard. Every rumor became another weapon. Every witness became another piece of carefully planted evidence. The deception spread far beyond the battlefield. It spread into conversations, into intelligence reports, into the minds of German commanders. Soon, reality became almost impossible to separate from fiction, but the greatest test of the Ghost Army had not yet come. Because in early 1945, one operation would place fewer than 1,100 men against an enemy expecting more than 30,000. If their illusion failed, thousands of real Allied soldiers would walk directly into prepared German guns, and this time, rubber tanks, recorded sounds, and brilliant acting would have to fool Hitler's army one last time. By March 1945, the war in Europe was entering its final chapter. Germany was retreating. But retreat did not make the German army less dangerous. Every bridge, every crossroads, every river could become a deadly trap. One of the Allies' greatest challenges was crossing the Rhine River. It was the last great natural barrier protecting the heart of Germany. The Germans knew it. The Allies knew it. If the enemy could predict where the crossing would happen, thousands of American soldiers might be killed before they ever reached the opposite bank. So, once again, the Ghost Army went to work. Their mission was simple to describe and almost impossible to execute. Convince the Germans that the main American attack would come somewhere else. Within hours, empty fields transformed into bustling military camps. Inflatable tanks appeared across the countryside. Canvas trucks lined dusty roads. Fake artillery batteries pointed toward imaginary targets. Massive loudspeakers filled the night with the roar of engines, the grinding of tank tracks, the clatter of bridge-building equipment, and the voices of hundreds of soldiers preparing for battle. The sounds echoed for miles. To anyone listening, an entire armored corps had arrived. At the same time, radio operators flooded the airwaves with carefully scripted messages, supply requests, engineering reports, orders from commanders. Every transmission matched the habits of real American divisions. German intelligence intercepted them exactly as expected. Every piece of evidence pointed to one conclusion: the invasion was coming here, but it wasn't. While German commanders shifted troops toward the fake army, the real Allied forces prepared to strike somewhere else. The deception worked. Enemy units were pulled away from critical positions. Artillery was redirected. Reserves moved toward an attack that would never happen. Every German battalion sent to the wrong location meant fewer guns waiting for the real assault. The Ghost Army had done something extraordinary. They had changed enemy strategy without winning a single firefight. But perhaps the bravest part of their mission is often forgotten. These men weren't hiding safely behind the front lines. Many of their operations took place only a few miles from German positions, sometimes even closer. If enemy patrols discovered that the tanks were inflatable or that the artillery was made of rubber, the deception would collapse instantly. The Ghost Army carried very few real weapons. If discovered, they would have had little chance against experienced combat troops. Their greatest protection wasn't armor, it wasn't firepower, it was confidence. They had to act as though everything around them was real, even when they knew it wasn't. Imagine inflating dozens of fake tanks in the middle of a war, knowing enemy aircraft could appear overhead at any moment. Imagine broadcasting fake army sounds through giant speakers, hoping no one was close enough to discover the truth. Imagine driving through villages wearing the insignia of divisions that weren't actually there, trusting that every civilian who reported seeing you would unknowingly become part of the operation. This wasn't just deception, it was theater performed on the largest stage imaginable, and the audience held rifles. By the end of the war, the Ghost Army had participated in more than 20 major deception operations across Europe. Military historians estimate that their work helped protect tens of thousands of Allied soldiers by forcing German commanders to make costly mistakes. Yet when the war ended, there were no victory parades for the Ghost Army, no newspaper headlines celebrating inflatable tanks, no public ceremonies honoring fake radio operators. Their achievements remained classified. The soldiers returned home carrying one final order: say nothing. For decades, many couldn't even tell their own families what they had done during the war. The greatest performance of their lives had to remain a secret. It wasn't until the 1990s that many of the classified records were finally released. Only then did historians begin to understand the true scale of what these men had accomplished. Artists, illustrators, architects, sound engineers, advertising designers, men who had once built stage sets, had quietly helped reshape the outcome of history. Today, when people think about World War II, they often imagine massive tank battles, dogfights over Europe, or soldiers storming beaches under heavy fire. But the Ghost Army reminds us of something just as powerful. Wars are not won by strength alone. Sometimes, the most dangerous weapon is an idea, a rumor, a sound in the darkness, a line of fake tanks seen through binoculars. Because once an enemy believes something, that belief can become more powerful than reality itself. Perhaps that's why the Ghost Army remains one of the most remarkable military units ever created. Not because they destroyed enemy armies, but because they convinced those armies to defeat themselves. More than 70 years later, their story still feels almost impossible to believe. An army made of rubber, weapons made of sound, battles fought with imagination instead of bullets, and one extraordinary reminder that history's greatest victories are sometimes won by people who never pull the trigger.